and
This conference will now be recorded.
it will be available on the Nahara YouTube channel by this Friday. Couple of housekeeping rules: if we can keep our mics on mute, and please utilize your chat box if you have any questions. We're so excited to have Nava with us. I feel that they're very innovative in the benefits world, so it's going to be really cool to hear. I have not been in HR and benefits for about over 5 years, so I'm super excited to hear what you have to offer us and educate us. So without further ado, I would love for you to start.
Sounds good. Yeah, thank you so much, Janet. And great to meet everyone. As Janet mentioned, I dropped a comment in the chat section, so feel free if at any point during the conversation you have a question or want to deep dive on something, just drop it in the chat and we'll try to hit it. These are more fun when they're conversational anyway, so we love that. And I just wanted to say I'm super grateful to be joining everyone here and to be, I think, at the beginning of our journey of building a deeper relationship with Nahara. And our team had a really good time with you all at the annual conference in Hawaii, and hopefully a few of you got a Nava tumbler, were able to get a drink. I'm sure you probably met Cam, Kaylee, Marcel from the team, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we're all going to be out with you in San Antonio in September, which will be a great time. So we're one of the things that we do as a team is we really try to gather thought leadership, learnings, lessons, insights that we get from working with hundreds of employers, hundreds of organizations around the country, and then try to distill it into something that's really tactically useful for the folks that we serve. And so that is one of our goals today. And as the title of the conversation says, the ultimate playbook to nailing the benefits RFP process. This is really about, one of the things that we hear from folks in HR and HR leaders all the time is just how kind of confusing, complex, and painful it feels to go and evaluate your vendor service providers, your partners. The RFP process is really painful, it's messy, it's manual. People are out Googling around going, hey, RFP draft template, how do I get started? And so we heard this enough times that we said, hey, we can distill a bunch of really great thought leadership, best practices that come in from our advisors who manage really sophisticated organizations, lessons that we've had being on the other side of the RFP process, and turn it into just a playbook that makes it really, really easy for the folks that we serve to go out and evaluate their partners, which we think is actually mission critical to getting great value out of those folks, including ourselves. We welcome being quote unquote RFP'd and evaluated for what we do. So and this is about kind of ensuring that that you've got the benefits programs and plans in place to ensure the longevity of your tribe, associations. So I'm excited to dive into this. And before we do that, I'll do a couple of quick introductions because none of you know me. You're meeting me for the first time. I'm Brandon Weber. I'm CEO and co-founder of Nava Benefits. And for those of you that don't know Nava, Nava is oriented entirely around the mission to provide high quality, affordable healthcare to all Americans. We started Nava because we believe that we're in a healthcare crisis here in America. We're in a crisis of cost. We're in a crisis of equitability and accessibility. And what we found was that the benefits broker actually plays a huge role in either helping to fix and address that problem for organizations or exacerbating it and maintaining the status quo. So we are on a mission to help fix healthcare by building a better brokerage. Sounds like someone might need to mute. Is hearing that echo? I think we're good. And the approach that we're taking is pretty unique. We've tapped into the benefits playbook, technology, and thought leadership of some of America's most admired and sophisticated organizations. And we're bringing it down to small and mid-sized organizations around the country in a simple, easy to deploy offering. That's what we're doing all day, every day in service of that mission. So that's enough about me and Nava. I'm super excited to also introduce kind of my co-host here, Ilana. Ilana is actually a fellow team member of ours. She runs our people operations team. She's got over a decade of experience in people operations, in culture building, in benefits, and is an absolute rock star. We couldn't live without her at Nava. So maybe I'll hand the mic over to Ilana for a minute to tell a bit about yourself.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, I get the privilege of selecting our benefits at a benefits company, which is a big honor. And this topic is particularly interesting to me because there's no one-size-fits-all solution to benefits, and it's one of the most important decisions that an HR team owns. So it's so critical to have the right partner to help you navigate this process, and therefore the RFP process in and of itself is so critical. So I'm excited to walk you all through some of the tips and tricks that I've learned so that you can have a smooth, successful, and stress-free RFP process. So excited to bring the HR leader's perspective to this conversation.
Yeah, and we'll make this a discussion between myself and Ilana too, asking her for her tips. So one of the things that I just wanted to start with is really kind of grounding why we think this is just so important right now. And I think that, as the slide says, the stakes have never been higher when it comes to benefits from our perspective. There's a lot of stuff happening. People are leaving organizations at record pace. We're facing some of the largest healthcare cost increases in over a decade. Kaiser Family Foundation just came out with their data that showed that we found almost a 10% healthcare cost increase for organizations between 100 and 1,000 employees. That's larger than it's been in the last 11 years. And then I think the third one is really around complexity. The healthcare benefits, funding arrangement landscape has gotten really complicated and really complex. There's a lot of innovation happening, and there's a lot of new things that HR teams are being tasked with trying to figure out. And so the stakes are high. And what we found is that while the kind of needs of the people have changed pretty dramatically in the last couple of years, most benefits programs and bundles that we come in contact with really haven't kept pace. So there's real opportunity there to level up. And so kind of our kind of statement to the world is that if there's ever an opportunity or a moment to really reevaluate your partners, your benefits, how you're thinking about it, this is the moment. And that's where the benefits consultant and broker comes in. And as you all know, in this conversation, the benefits broker really sits at the center of the healthcare marketplace. And they're critical to either maintaining the status quo or affecting positive change for the members and their families, because they are the ones that either gatekeep or bring in new innovation, new ideas, new funding arrangements, new ways to save money and provide better outcomes. And so that's kind of why we're in the moment of the RFP. Finding the right broker partner, finding the right consultant is more important than ever before. And with that, I think we get into the RFP. The RFP is a really incredible tool. Actually, as much as people have PTSD or fear or frustration around it, it's really, really powerful. It's a process to really kind of evaluate side by side different organizations. One of the really interesting things is you get to go deep on capabilities, on terms, on costs in a way that that you don't get to do in your day-to-day. And one thing that one of our advisors said to me that really resonates is it's a moment in time opportunity to really evaluate what is out there. What are the best practices? What's the cutting edge? Who's doing things 10x better than standard out in the broader space? So it's a powerful tool, but when we talk to hundreds of HR folks around the country, we get this, yeah, I should totally do it, but I definitely don't want to because it's really complicated, it's painful, I'm not even sure I'm going to get the right outcome. And so the RFP process itself stinks. And we feel that being on the other side of RFPs that are often wildly, kind of off target in terms of maybe the data that they're trying to gather and whatnot. And so that's why we're here. What we wanted to do was distill all of the thinking, all of the feedback, all of the insights that we've gathered across thousands of organizations and thought leaders into like a very tactical playbook that everyone on this call, everyone that we share this out with can run to just get through and kind of what we call crush the RFP process. And so it's a step-by-step playbook to actually run the RFP process in 8 weeks, tip to tail. It's a best-in-class plug and play RFP template that is focused on the information that you need and how to really extract kind of maximum insight from those partners. So we've done all the hard work. The doc is there, you can customize it, you can tailor it to your specific needs. And then last but not least, some just great insights and kind of tips and tricks from benefits thought leaders around things to avoid and things to really double down on to just to come away from this process with a lot of success. So with that, why don't we get started? Ilana, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about the actual 4-step pre-RFP process.
Yeah, as an HR leader, here are the 4 steps that I'm thinking about before even getting to the RFP. So the first step is really determining the goal of your project. There could be lots of different reasons why you're going in for an RFP. You could be just looking for a market pulse check to see what else is out there, make sure that you're on the right track. You could be potentially looking for a broker replacement. You're happy with your broker, but you just want to make sure you're not missing anything, or someone could be a better fit for your organization. And then the third potential option is you're confident you want to replace your broker. Maybe you've had a bad experience and you want to leave this process with a BOR in hand and new benefits. So just aligning with your executive team to make sure you're all on the same page there. And then the second step, kind of following up on that, is just getting your internal team aligned. What are the most important things that you want to look for when going into this RFP process? And one tip that I have is if your executive team might not be as well versed in the benefit space, you can come to them with like, hey, here's my recommendation for what I want to focus on in this process based on the feedback that I've gotten from our employees. Does that track with you? And that's oftentimes how Brandon and I work together too, coming to the table with my recommendation and then getting his thoughts. And then just making sure there's clear ownership of who's owning what in this process, and getting all the key stakeholders aligned. Brandon, anything else to add there from internal alignment from your perspective?
I think this is one, both as a CEO and as putting my broker hat on, this is an area that I see a lot of things get derailed. It's just not doing that critical step to go gather the group together, going, we're going to do this and here are the reasons why, and then creating a space for the folks around the table to go, well, I want this, or I'm thinking this way, or I'd like to make sure that we handle this. So yeah, it's a quick but very important step.
Yeah. Then once your team is aligned, the next step is to really narrow down on your broker list. We recommend going out to 3 to 5 different brokers to RFP with, and it's going to be a lot of work to get to know these brokers, so you just want to be mindful of your time. That's why we typically suggest 3 to 5. And then it comes down to doing your research. So reaching out to referrals, talking to friends, asking, hey, does your company offer great benefits? Oh, who's your broker? Reaching out to HR communities like Nahara and asking, hey, do they have any recommendations? And just generally keeping an eye out for super fans who speaks really highly of their broker and getting those types of people on your list to RFP. And then the last step is really setting a timeline. So letting everyone know how long we expect this process to take and just creating benchmarks throughout the process. Again, we recommend setting aside 8 weeks, and we'll jump into that a little bit later in the process of how exactly to navigate each week.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did is we focused on how do we build the perfect RFP? Like, what does the perfect RFP look like? What are the insights, the questions that you ask? And pulled that together in an RFP template. And that RFP template includes the core RFP questions that we think are kind of no regret RFP questions that are going to get you great insight back from the partners, as well as a big appendix of additional questions that might be specific to your organization, your geography, specific needs that you can pull in. And what we're really working on doing is making sure that that's both kind of plug and play and just easy for you to distribute. So it's a combination of the actual template itself as well as the process around it. And one of the things that I forgot to mention too is our advisory board is a really interesting group of folks. The head of benefits at Amazon, head of benefits at Delta Airlines, head of total rewards at Airbnb, organizations that kind of crisscross the United States and actually have a lot of different types of folks at them, from in-person to information workers, on-site to off-site. And they gave us their best practices. They said, these are the questions that I think are mission critical. These are the things to avoid. This is what a good answer looks like. This is what a bad answer looks like. And we've tried to incorporate that into this document in this discussion. And so what we're going to do is take a few of the questions. We thought it would get pretty boring if we went through every single RFP question and talked about all of them. But we wanted to do is kind of unpack 6 or 7 of those questions to really give a sense for kind of what we're actually looking for, what a great answer looks like, and what a bad answer looks like. And then these are 10 questions that you don't need to read all of these. If you want, you can take a screenshot, but we'll actually send you all of this information afterwards. And we're going to deep dive on a handful of these questions just right now. And feel free to drop any kind of questions, feedback, just personal experiences in the chat. We'd love to make this a discussion. So first off, I'll call out the question, and then maybe hand the mic over to Ilana to give a sense from an HR leader's perspective, what she's looking for. But first one is, describe your firm's qualifications in working with the unique needs of tribal enterprises. Specifically, highlight the qualifications that distinguish you from your competitors. This might feel like a very broad, open-ended question. That's exactly what it's meant to be. It creates a space for that partner to either really shine and actually really bring their work forward, or to be really, really kind of middling in terms of how they approach it. Ilana, maybe walk us through how kind of you look at like what great and what to watch out for.
Yeah, in this answer, I'd be looking for a background of this brokerage working with other tribal community members, a background of leveraging sovereign advantages, just a history of working with tribal enterprises, or they have a qualified partner that they're working with serious expertise. And I don't want to hear that, oh, yes, we've done this. I want to hear more specifics of how they've worked with different tribal entities, because it's easy to say yes, but I want to make sure that I'm really seeing depth there. So again, just looking out for a lack of experience with the community, and just kind of using the traditional broker approach that is like a copy and paste from any other company that they work with. We want to make sure that they understand the specific unique needs of any company that they're working with.
Yeah. And question 2 that we wanted to deep dive on. So describe the proposed team that would work with and support the organization, and their background and qualifications, and specifically their role on our team. This is a huge one, and it's amazing how often overlooked this is, but the goal here is to understand who you as an HR team will be working with day to day, and then what their specific area of expertise is and what their role is on the team. Something that often happens is you find the benefits broker or the partner will put a lot of names and faces with fancy titles on their RFP response, and then you hire them, and then you kick off, and it turns out that you're working with a whole different set of people, and you have to kind of relearn what they're doing, and you might have gotten bait and switched. Ilana, walk through kind of what to look for, what to watch out for here.
Yeah, you really want to make sure that you're getting to know the actual team that you're going to be working with, that you're going to be spending a ton of time with, that you're going to need to trust. So you want to look out for consistency with who you'll be working with, and teams with backgrounds that match your company needs. If your company is really into mental wellness, has this company or has this person implemented mental wellness solutions before? Do they have a strong point of view here? So making sure there's values alignment and experience alignment with the team that you're working with as well. What to watch out for is a completely different team from who you've been speaking with, kind of like that bait and switch that Brandon was talking about. And then maybe just a general lack of experience. You want to make sure your team that you're working with has done this before, and you can trust them, that they've seen some of the problems that you might face.
Yeah, it's also an opportunity for teams to really shine and kind of show their personality and lean into the kind of the importance of that personal relationship between you and your account team. Janet, it looks like you had a question. You said, oh, go ahead, Ilana, then we'll hit Janet's question.
I was just going to mention Janet's question.
Go for
it. Janet asked, in regards to customer service with the broker, is that top of the list? In my opinion, yes, it's definitely top of the list, and exactly what we're talking about. Not just the broker that you're going to be working with, but who's the whole client success team that's going to service you on a daily basis? Who's going to be the one communicating with your employees and your go-to person? So great question.
Yeah. And it's also one of the pain points that we hear most consistently, which is, man, my team is reactive, not proactive. They're not responsive. I can't get a hold of them when I have hard problems for my members. So absolutely need to know who is in charge of those specific kind of duties. And on that note, actually describing customer service, it's a good segue into question 3, which is describe how your team will measure itself in terms of its performance and service of our account and our members. And really, the goal here, like it says, understand how the brokerage team thinks about accountability in delivering great outcomes and great service for you. So what accountability mechanisms do they bring to the table? And then what data are they using to ensure that your offering is competitive and you're getting great service on the account? This is actually one of the biggest misses that we see in the traditional benefits brokerage industry. They have no notion of measuring whether they're doing a good job or not on behalf of the client. We see this as a huge opportunity, and this is an opportunity for you doing the RFP to really separate the status quo from folks who are really leaned in. Ilana, talk to me about this. I know this is a hot button for you. Maybe walk through kind of what good looks like.
I think it's so important to level set before you enter a relationship here. What good looks like to you might not be what good looks like to the partner that you're working with. So you want to make sure that there's unique, specific answers of how this brokerage will make your work easier and improve the employee experience. And make sure that there's reference to data tracking and service lender agreements. So how quickly can I expect a response for one of my employees? What is a good rate of involvement in a certain benefit plan look like? How often are we going to be meeting? And just coming up with numbers collectively in the beginning and making sure that the brokerage has a strong point of view of what good looks like also, and that there's alignment there. You want to watch out for cookie cutter answers and not taking the employee experience into consideration. At the end of the day, we're providing benefits for our employees, so we want to make sure that the broker is also really mindful of creating a great overall experience for our employees.
Yeah, things that I specifically look out for is like, are they giving you a tight responsiveness service level agreement? So are they guaranteeing that they're going to be handling your issues and questions at a certain pacing? Another big one on the employee experience is, are they measuring member satisfaction with their benefits? It's super important and often overlooked. And it's one of the biggest and kind of most important inputs that you can have on, at least from the population, from the people standpoint. Are they happy with it? And then last but definitely not least is just like cost trend. How are we doing relative to the benchmarks? How are we doing relative to the broader market? At Nava, one of the things that we rigorously measure internally is, are we getting our clients better pricing, better deals, better cost outcomes than the broader market that we're competing in? We track that, we measure that. We're super proud of, I think we're 73% lower than the Kaiser Family Foundation benchmark in terms of cost increases. But it's something that every HR team should have, I think, kind of take their power and have like full confidence that they can ask for that type of accountability. I'll keep going.
And
go ahead, Ilana.
Beyond that, you can ask for examples, like show me a proven experience doing this with another company to back it up too.
So question 4, discuss what your organization believes are the most compelling issues today in the employee benefits and wellness industry, and how your team is uniquely poised to address them. For me, this is all about thought leadership. I think one of the big opportunities in doing an RFP is to come back with a lot of learnings. I've learned a lot. I've kind of moved my understanding of what's going on out there. So how much is this brokerage and this brokerage team keeping tabs on what the industry is doing, where things are changing, and then are they actually able to go and implement those things, or are they just following? And this is a big one, especially right now in this moment where there's so much transformation happening on employee experience, on benefits, on wellness, on mental health, and on funding arrangements. Ilana, why don't you hit the
There's so many new vendors out there, so many new hot benefits. It's such a competitive market. As HR leaders, I'm sure many of you can attest, we're all pretty busy, so we want to be able to rely on our broker to be proactive and bring that to the table for us. Say, hey, I've been seeing this benefit out of a lot of your competitors. Have you thought about this? Here's specifically how it could help your organization. And being proactive instead of waiting for us to ask them, hey, what are the latest wellness benefits you've been seeing? coming to the table every month or so with what they've been seeing on the market to make sure that we're being competitive and servicing our employees. And then just generally being active in industry publications and other associations to make sure that they're getting the information they need to help us make an informed decision. And then, of course, being data-driven. Again, X% of other companies in your space offer this. You should consider doing this. So the data-driven part is super helpful. And then just watch out for answers that feel super obvious, stuff that you already know. You want your broker to teach you something new. And then again, just a lack of data or an overall strong point of view.
Cool. One quick question for the group, and feel free to just drop your answer in chat, is how many folks on the call have done an RFP, for broker or brokerage services in, let's say, the last year or two? Just curious, feel free to drop it in the chat if yes or no. I'm curious to get a sense for how many folks have engaged on this. And we'll keep going while we're doing that. The fifth question we wanted to highlight was describe your ongoing client support model and how you will create efficiency for me and my department. This is a very HR team oriented question, probably hits a little bit on Janet's question too. Really the goal here is to determine how each of these brokerage firms are going to make the HR team's life easier. And this is a huge thing. And that is often overlooked or glossed over in terms of answers to RFP questions. So Ilana, I know this is a special place in your heart as an HR leader. Talk us through what to look for and what to watch out for.
Yeah, I think as HR leaders, we're so quick to put our employees first, but the added value of a great broker is that they could also save us sometimes. So this is our selfish question to help us understand how the broker can make a measurable difference on our overall efficiency, how they can save me time, how many hours can they save me based on what they've done with previous clients, what do their response rates look like, and just overall their experience dealing one-on-one with employees and taking some of those everyday questions that I get off of my plate. Time to just really dive deep on that answer and make sure that they have a playbook for supporting HR people specifically. What I would watch out for is promises without data to back it up, saying, oh, we'll help you save 4 hours a week. Easy to say that, but show me how you've done this for another company. And just a lack of service lender agreements or service commitments. So for an example, getting back to employees within 24 hours or something like that. So the communication and relationship between the HR person and the broker or the CS client success team is going to be so important. And again, it's just aligning on expectations early on.
Yeah. Some things that we really lean into on this, just on our side of the table, is taking over board more member support, like direct question and answers from members when they're having struggles with a medical bill, finding the right provider, et cetera. And then another big one that has grown pretty kind of significantly over time is things related to compliance and some of the regulatory aspects. We just categorically work to take all of that off of the HR team's plate into the Nava compliance department. And oftentimes, depending on the type of organization, that can give back a lot of time or a little bit, but you look out for specifics there. Thank you all for diving in on it. Looks like we've got, the current average on RFP responses is somewhere between, over the last 5 to maybe 15 years in Dan's case. We'll do just a couple more, and then we'll talk about the process to go get this done and run it. But what is your proposed fee structure and contract term for us, and why? And then a couple of sub beats here around what's your firm's policy on accepting contingent commissions, pool bonuses, and other sources of income in connection to the services for your clients. Second is describe how you'll disclose your compensation to our organization. And then third is what is your policy on warranties or guarantees for satisfaction for services? This is one of my favorite questions because this is the one that makes probably all the people receiving the RFP sweat and squirm the most, which is exactly what we're here for. We want to make them work for you. This is one of the biggest areas of problem and opportunity that we saw with Nava, was that the mass majority of kind of the traditional brokerage industry was financially misaligned with the outcomes that they were meant to serve for their employers and their employees. And so this is for you to really unpack what is their financial model, and how is it going to be guiding or misguiding their decisions and their advice for you. And this is about, this is about financial misalignment. This is also about transparency and accountability. And is when we talk to our advisors who are doing this at very large organizations, this is actually the first question that they ask, which is really interesting. Actually, when you think about that, they just start with "Show me the money," which is a really interesting thing. Ilana, why don't you take over the content?
Yeah. As an HR leader who does benefits as one of the many things that I do, don't specifically focus on benefits, I'll be the first to admit that this is where it gets confusing. And I'm so excited to have a copy and paste question for everyone just to plug into their RFPs and feel good about asking all the right questions here. And I think what I would overall look for is transparencies and fees across the board in language that is easy to understand. Removal of shady kickback practices, openness to creative funding solutions, so working together based on my unique needs as a company to find a solution that works versus just like a blanket solution. And of course, a satisfaction guarantee. It would be amazing. We're spending so much money on our benefits. We want to make sure we're getting a great service. And what to watch out for, just a general lack of a clear policy, a fee structure that can create misaligned incentives. But overall big thing here is transparency and something that is easy to understand for an average HR person.
And looking through a lot of responses, we see a lot of very hand wavy, like we will negotiate that once we have kicked off the arrangement, or to be determined, or a market compensation. Those are great examples of like big watch outs that you're going to want to drill into. It's a really good opportunity to also create some financial competition amongst the folks that are bidding for your business. Marcel also dropped some great context into what we mean by pool bonuses or persistency bonuses. It's one of the very interesting secrets around benefits brokerage is these persistency bonuses that are paid out. And seventh question that we wanted to dive into is describe how you propose to build an understanding of our culture and priorities as a sovereign entity in order to recommend changes and project costs. Kind of two questions packed into one here. I think one big area is really just like, do they actually dig into the people and our needs and our cultural goals as an organization, which is a real big driver of how we think about benefits. I mean, even at Nava, like Ilana and I are always talking about, well, what kind of culture are we trying to build? What does it mean to be a remote first culture? Who are we trying to attract? And therefore, what kind of benefits package, funding, et cetera, should we be putting together? So that's a big piece. And then the second one is really around, can they dig into the specifics, in your case, of being a sovereign entity and the opportunities and watchouts that come with that when it comes to healthcare benefits and the like. And so both of those things are kind of packed into this one. We keep it really, really open-ended because it gives the broker who's responding to the RFP an opportunity to really shine and show that they're an expert and they go deep on this. Someone like Cam will probably write 2 to 3 pages of context and specific domain expertise here around things that you can leverage as a sovereign entity. Folks who don't really understand it will give you a really short bullet kind of boilerplate answer. Ilana, talk us through kind of your perspective on this.
Yeah, like I was saying, there's no one size fits all to benefits. It's really about what are the unique benefits that my team can leverage. So it's really important for the broker to get to understand your employee base and what's most important to them. So I want to see that they have a playbook for really getting to know all the details of our employee base and our goals, whether that's through a survey, through a listening tour of talking to my employees. But it's so important that they're just not giving us a blanket solution, that it's really a tailored solution to our company's culture. And then, of course, having a background leveraging sovereign advantages is going to be huge. We want to see that they also have a playbook for doing that they've done it before, that they can be a trusted advisor. So I'd watch out for wishy-washy, like high-level copy and paste answers here that aren't specific to your culture. And bonus points of listening to what you're saying already and adding some of those talk tracks into this answer. And then just not personalizing their answer to include tribal culture or utilization of sovereign health advantages. Again, looking for that specificity and track record of doing that.
Yeah, One note too, Troy asked a good question. He said on the previous note, wouldn't CAA cover us on the transparency piece? For those that don't know, CAA is the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which is a really cool act. We're huge fans of this. It basically says that every broker partner is going to need to disclose all of their forms of compensation as well as their service. What we're finding in practice is the vast majority of brokers are not doing that unless you push them to. And in many cases, what they're, kind of, these regulations are really kind of like in like non-compliance until they're forced to comply. So great call out, Troy. This is really about, that question was about like pushing them to do the thing that is now in legislation, at least on the transparency side. The other points really hold around, are you taking broker bonuses? Are you providing a performance guarantee? Those are other mechanisms that aren't covered by CAA. Perfect. Well, awesome. So we deep dove into 7 questions that are on the RFP template to try to give you a sense for how we thought about things and kind of what good looks like, what watchouts look like. The RFP template has far more. I think we've got 20 questions in the core RFP plus another an appendix of additional questions. So you'll get all that and more in the guide that we'll share. And then I want to hand the mic over to Ilana to talk about, okay, cool, we've got a great RFP template. I don't have to do the 40 hours of work that it seems like someone has to do to pull these things together. Now walk me through the process to really get through the evaluation and come out of it with a really clear decision. Ilana, you want to take this?
Happy to hop in here. As an HR leader here, the 3-step process that I would consider doing, and super important part of the process to wrap it all up here. So the first step of the process is you've had your RFP, you've chosen your finalist. The next step is to really run a smooth finalist presentation. So determine the format. Do you want to meet in person? Do you want to meet virtually? And then just setting expectations with finalists. Be clear on time restrictions and expectations for the meeting. Share what topics they must present on, what format, and communicate who will be in the room up front. This is where you're going to get all your questions answered. So important to align on making sure that the broker has all the questions that you have left over so that we can acknowledge those in the actual finalist presentation so that we can come out with a decision here. And then the next step is to create your finalist scorecard. I really like this one. So it's really important to be measured. So determine which items carry the most impact and weigh those accordingly. Come up with a couple of competencies based on that initial chat you had when you were setting expectations in the pre-RFP process. And then I love to just write them down, and as you're going through the finalist presentations, you can just check them off to see that the broker is hitting those topics that you find are important. And again, be selective on the specific topics that matter most to you. You can have a 10-page checklist, but let's start with the top 5 or so that matter most to you.
This is really big. This is kind of an area that we see things go off the rails. You have a lot of meetings with a lot of different brokers. Everyone forgets what they thought about those brokers. You try to come back together and it gets really messy on trying to actually make a selection. So we've included a best practice scorecard too that can get you started just to make it really easy. And this really, I think, takes a lot of the pain and suffering out of the HR department, trying to herd the cats, if you will, and get everyone's decisions and kind of points of view made. Small thing, but I think with a big impact.
Definitely. And then you're also measuring all of the brokerages on the same scale and creating an equitable process. Yep. And then the last step is really gaining executive buy-in for your decision. So knowing your audience, using the language and proof points that resonate with your team specifically. The goal is it should be easy to understand. So if your team is very data-driven, tell the brokerage to include as much data as they can in the presentation. And then finding a champion. If you have a key stakeholder and give them an advanced view, it can be super helpful. Just having another advocate in the room before the big meeting is so important. And then also, if you align on that champion before the final presentations, you can also get a sense of what questions they have, what are they thinking about, to make sure that those final presentations are also addressing those questions as well. So just good to have a partner to help you across the finish line.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit earlier about the 8-week process, and here's what it looks like for a 1-1 renewal and what we recommend. So in just under a month from now, it's time to align internally and customize the RFP questions and narrow in on your list of brokers that you want to RFP. A week or so later, issuing the RFP and fielding any clarifying questions, and then giving your broker 2 or 3 weeks, which brings us to the end of June, to receive responses and begin reviewing the scores. And then a week or so later, notifying the finalists and scheduling those presentations. A week later, finalizing those presentations and using your scorecards. And then the following week, conducting references and socializing the decision internally. And then by the end of July, hopefully selecting your broker and signing a BOR to bring you through that 8-week process, allowing you enough time to really get your benefits set up for the 1/1 renewal.
Yeah, this is a process too that we've gotten a lot of feedback on in terms of how much time do you need between each step to actually realistically go through the work. So we feel pretty good about this. And the reason we oriented the dates as they are is we've got a lot of folks, I don't know how many folks on this call, but a lot of folks who are doing a January 1 renewal. And so making sure that you get yourself in position to go through the broker evaluation process so you have plenty of time to go through the benefits, renewal, and strategy process as well. And I think it's one thing that we've heard a lot is like, man, I really should do this year, but man, it feels hard. And so how do you make it easier and kind of take it off of your, off your to-do list and just get it done? And I'm curious if anyone in the chat has feedback or experiences that they've had running through their RFP process. Would love to hear those as well. Ilana, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think this slide is also helpful for getting executive buy-in on the milestones, setting a project plan up front and saying, hey, I'm going to need your decision by this time. Here are the dates that we have to consider. You can even throw calendar invites on people's calendar, but just making sure that everyone is on the same page. And as an HR leader, you're getting the answers you need in a timely manner that's going to align with this overall schedule.
Yeah, I appreciate what Ilana does for our organization is give us presentations like this internally and walk through these things. So we'll make sure that the slides are available, but I, as the CEO of an organization, want to be kind of walked through and just make sure that I've got visibility into what the process actually looks like, start to finish, and what's expected of me if I'm going to be in that room. Perfect. Awesome. Well, with that, so that was the body of the presentation. Like I said, we will have the RFP template, the best practices scorecard, and the slides, or any slides specifically if you need those, just ready, and then the whole kind of project plan too. So all of that is kind of put in together in what we call the RFP kit, so that you're starting from hopefully 90% done, not 90% done, not 0% done. But would love to open it up for any Q&A. And it looks like we actually have one in the chat. Azadeh, I hope I got your name right. Tell me if I didn't. Had a great question. Hey, how can we see the sample scorecard? That'll be in the follow-up materials. So, and maybe Alex, I know you're on the call. Keep me accountable here, but I think the plan is to make sure that the whole group gets access to all those materials without having to ask for it or anything like that. We just want to make sure that you've got that. Alex, did I get that right?
You did, yes. I'll be providing a follow-up email, and Janet will be distributing that to the group.
Awesome.
It'll have all the resources that we just mentioned. Yep.
Yeah.
What? Go ahead, Janet.
I just have a comment. I haven't been in HR, God, for a year now, and I feel that every day there is something new that comes up, and benefit trends, recruiting trends. And I remember back in the day when I worked for an organization and they had a broker who didn't even file their 5500s. You need someone, like you said, to really watch out for the business interest as well. But also too, there is I know back in the day, there was a bit of a challenge when you have a group of people, not only the HR professionals that work with the brokers, right, every single day, but you have people such as your finance team, and they don't like to see the fluff. They like just to see black and white, the numbers. And it was a bit challenging because, a lot of people say that HR doesn't generate revenue, but, what is our ROI going with this broker? It's like you have to put this package together because customer service for me is so important, and someone who is going to be looking out for our best interest, and also to be proactive and not reactive. I wanted to receive the medication quarterly reports just to see where, what medications, and now it's a little bit different because we have COVID on top of that, in which, if you had a pre-existing condition, now you have something else. So now medical increases are more. Also, you would have to have that conversation if with your organization, who's going to be eating those costs? Is it going to be, the organization, or are we going to be giving these costs to our team members? There's so much that a group of people really need to make a decision on, because, at the end of the day, it's our team members or the team members that are going to be suffering or be excited about these decisions. And I love how you said in the beginning is to survey, or you can do a group talks on, what are the challenges, what are some of the things you would need. We did something, and a lot of our team members wanted animal benefits. So, you know what I mean? Pet insurance. I mean, some people had horses, cats, and it's such a small benefit that we see, but important for our team members. So it's really important to listen to your team members. I think now trending is more of mental awareness, and seeing if, is there more than an EAP program? I, for myself, if I had to do an RFP, I would love to hear experiences, Lana, like you were saying, is that's so important, is to hear experiences, because at the end of the day, brokers, they want to get into the, into the organization, but at the end of the day are they saying, are they walking the talk? And it's so hard to trust people. It is really hard to trust people, especially, protecting the sovereignty and the tribe's best interest.
You said a lot there. Yeah, that really resonates. Maybe I'll touch on a couple of things. It looks like we got a good question in chat too. I think one interesting thing that we see that with the traditional brokers is they don't really recognize how important to the HR team the finance department is as a stakeholder. And so they don't make it easy for the HR team to articulate what's going on to finance, whether that's monthly claims analysis, whether that is, whether that is IBNR reporting, whether that is just straight up, hey, how much is this going to cost and why? And so that kind of notion of like making sure that stakeholder is really kind of well informed is something that's super important to us, and creates a lot of friction and pain in the HR teams when they're like they feel like that department's not getting the information they need. So that really resonates with me. Another thing that you said, which actually ties directly into the RFP process, we actually had a question that we were ready to kind of tackle on this, which is, what if I have certain benefits or certain topics or certain tools that I really am interested in as an organization? So for example, you're like mental health. That is, we 100% agree with you. The EAP is not the solution for today's modern mental health challenges that we have as people, as folks living through COVID, et cetera. There's an entirely new class of opportunities there, of partners that can transform truly people's mental health. We've seen this firsthand, and we go so far as we bundle in mental health services into Nava's brokerage offering for folks that really value this like we do. Include that in your RFP. That's a perfect question to add, and just make it an open-ended question around the topic. And Jenna, I like your framing, which is like, brokers want to win business, they're trying to get in the door and try to build a relationship. So try to hold their feet to the fire on specific examples that they have in doing the thing that you're interested in learning about. That's a big one. We've even added a few appendix questions in there, for example. So that really resonates with me. And Ilana, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add, or Marcel or Cam, if you guys have.
Yeah. I think this is like a matchmaking experience, right? And when we're interviewing, we like to ask behavioral-based interview questions, which is like, tell me about a time. So just learning from their past experiences to help inform what your relationship will look like in the future, I think is a good tip too.
Yeah.
And then I know we have a question from Dan in the chat too.
Yeah. Dan, that's a great question, by the way, because this is one of the big friction points that we hear from folks. They're like, oh, well, my broker's been my broker for 10 years, for 15 years, for 5 years. They're a nice person. You know, I don't want to rock the boat, even though I want to check things out. So I think Dan's question, just for everyone, if you're doing a pulse check or a confidence check, which is one of the kind of the forums, what's the best approach handling the RFP project with your current broker? I'll give my point of view, and then I'd love Ilana's point of view as the HR buyer who's done this many times. I think for me, the way that I approach it, and we've had this too, we actually recommend our clients RFP every 2 or 3 years. Like, it's just a way that you can go and evaluate. For me, I think it's two things. It's one, setting that context, going, hey, you're doing a great job for us, but in my fiduciary duty to our organization and the longevity of our organization and the health of our folks, I just need, as a best practice, I check on the market to see what's out there, what best practices are, et cetera. And I want to run an RFP process that looks like that. But that's the framing. You're doing a good job. We're going to look at other opportunities, and mostly as a gut check, as a best practice, not because you're a jerk or we didn't like you or or things like that. It's just a best practice of the organization, and it's part of my fiduciary duty. I think that's a good framing that we've seen used. Ilana, any other kind of tips on how you do it?
Yeah, I think just setting the expectation up front, like you were saying, is important. And also, the benefits landscape has changed so much over the past few years. That in and of itself is a perfectly fine reason for wanting to take a pulse check. And you can call it that, a pulse check or market check, to see that you're on the right track. And hopefully your broker encourages that. Hopefully they're confident enough in their service that it's not going to be something that upsets them. The right broker would encourage that and want the best for you and your company.
Yeah. Marcel made a great point too, which generally best practice, good practice, to even if you're doing a full, you've really got issues with your broker, include them in the process, and if you want to, and that'll make them feel kind of more comfort, and hopefully they compete. Yeah, Cam made a great point, and this is around compensation. Don't forget to ask if your broker will work on a performance basis. So reduced fixed fee with a small participation in savings. So putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to can we actually deliver financial outcomes for the organization. I know we've got a couple of minutes. It looks like a couple of more chats are coming in. Yeah, great question, Dan. Any other questions for folks? Either over the chat or, and I'm curious, maybe even in the chat, like, just want to make sure, was this helpful? And also any feedback on as we share the actual RFP template and the playbook, we love getting feedback on this stuff, and like, how could we make it 10% better? It's kind of a cultural operational process that we have. We call it 10% better feedback. So as you go through it too, just send a note to us directly on, hey, this was confusing to me, or this would make my life easier for the next time, and we'll update the toolkit and make sure that that incorporates your feedback. Perfect. Jenna, I think I want to make sure that we give everyone back their time and don't take too much of it, but we got 1 minute left. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Just wanted to thank you all for joining us today. Nava, very, very helpful. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I have learned a lot. I wish I can do an RFP now, but I wish I had these tools when I started in HR. So wanted to say thank you. As Alex had said, we will send the presentation. We'll email everyone that joined us in this morning, and want to thank everyone. Thank you so much, and have a great day. It's 1 o'clock my time. I know there's some people that are just starting out their morning, so wanted to say thank you so much.
Thank you, Janet. And as we always say,
everyone.
if you ever need help, we're here. We do benefits audits. We're trying to be supportive to the organization. So great to meet you all. Great questions.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.